Good morning. Thank you all for sticking around. For those who don't know me, my name is Dan Walker. I am the senior warden here at Redeemer. We did several town halls in the summertime, very well received. You know, there's a lot of information we try to share. Some of it comes out and reveals. But the reason for the town halls is we believe there are some times when we need to make it very easy for y'all to be able to have FaceTime with the vestry and look them eye to eye and ask any questions you may have. So please, feel free to do so. We want this to be a two-way communication. And this is kind of a pattern I hope you'll see in the future, where we will start off with a presentation about a topic that we think is vitally important to the parish, give you some information, and then open the floor for questions. The questions need not strictly pertain to the subject. So this morning, Jared Taylor, who is the liaison with Reds, is going to give you an update about Reds. And then afterwards, we'll open it for questions. So if you have questions on Reds, great. If you have questions about why in the heck I'm the senior warden, that's okay too. Any questions are open and we will do our best. We have a fair number of our vestry people here. So I'd like to start off by just make sure you can eyeball and know who your vestry people are. So if you're on the vestry, would you please rise? So these are your vestry people. And for those of you sitting there, you can't see, but Cindy Taylor and Caroline Head are behind you also. So without further ado, Jared Taylor will talk to you about Reds.
Thank you, Jimmy. All right, good morning, Redeemer. As Dan said, my name is Jared Taylor, and I am your vestry liaison between the parish and Redeemer Episcopal Day School. For those who don't know, Reds is a weekday ministry of the church, and it currently serves 163 students in total, of ages 2 through 5th grade. So, like you said, we, the vestry, and Mother Molly, we want to take the first 15 to 20 minutes of the town hall today to talk about Reds and all the truly wonderful things that this ministry of our church is doing. So a little bit about me, actually. My family, we found Redeemer because of Reds. So long story short, back in 2018 when we moved to Richmond, we were looking for a preschool for my oldest daughter, now Margot. When we tried Reds, and we loved the message that they were receiving as part of regular chapel. We really wanted to reinforce that at home. So we decided to come to a Sunday service, and you know, what the rest they say is history, right? So now we are everything Redeemer. This is my 3rd year on the vestry. My wife Casey teaches 2nd grade. Patty is in kindergarten, and Margot is in 3rd grade. So floating around are a little like 1-page information slips just about Reds. So the first half is just some highlights of the last year or so. All the information was also in the annual report, so if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to read that. And then the bottom half is new information regarding the budget of Reds. So to start, I want to talk about a little bit about my role of vestry liaison and what my responsibilities are. So this role is new on the vestry. It was implemented only in January of last year under the recommendation of Jenny Montgomery, who was our priest in residence at the time. And while there are many reasons why this role was necessary, I think the main idea was to address the significant information silos that were happening between the rector, the vestry, the parish, and Reds. I don't want to rehash past that. We don't need to get into the details of all that. but I'll just say the communication was poor, right? So my number one job is to communicate between the vestry, the parish, and Reds. So to do that, I have a lot of meetings. I meet with Julia Dorsey, who is the Reds head of school. I communicate with her at least once a week, and we meet with her monthly. We have the Reds school board meetings at least 6 times a year, and then all that information is passed on to the vestry and the leadership. To reflect a little bit just on the past few years, I would be remiss and dishonest if I didn't say what a significant challenge it's been for me personally, for the vestry and the Reds and that relationship, right? We really worked hard to rebuild and renew that relationship. Some of you may be wondering why we haven't had a town hall or meeting like this sooner, and honestly, we just weren't ready. There was a lot of work that went into those meetings, and we've had many difficult discussions over the past few years. It really had to be rebuilt from the ground up. But the reason why I'm here today is because we think the relationship between Reds and Redeemer parish is as strong as it's ever been. So I would really like to thank Julia Dorsey, the Reds head of school, Dan Walker, Nancy Hodder, and Rick Maurer, who have been your wardens over these last 2 years, in really leading that effort and that partnership in healing the relationship between the church and the school. In this past year plus, since I've been the liaison, we've made significant updates of the relationship, which includes the Memorandum of Understanding, which really defines the entire relationship between the church and the school. This document covers everything from cost sharing to space to the organizational structure of the entire body, and what the communication expectations are between the two bodies. And we actually revisit that document each spring, so we're due for that. One thing I do want to highlight, and there's been some misunderstanding or confusion about this, is that Reds is contributing $19,000 for the current school year. So their fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30. So for that time in their fiscal year, they're contributing $19,000 to utilities for Redeemer. Next year, they have committed $30,000. So for the 24-25 school year, they've committed $30,000 to Redeemer. So prior to this current year, they haven't contributed at all in the history of Reds. So I think that shows a significant commitment from Reds to Redeemer to really be a part of this parish. Another thing that we've done is a huge effort was to rewrite the governance documents and bylaws. I think it's been about 20 years since those were done last, Mary? So I need to thank Mary Alligood for that. She led that effort. We spent countless hours last summer researching, calling other private schools in Virginia, drafting this living document into what it is today. So please, thank you, Mary. One thing I want to say that's not in there yet, but is an effort and was just approved in the minutes from our last board meeting, is to really establish and solidify and cement Reds' identity as an Episcopal school, and all of that means, right? I think they already do a fantastic job of this with their primary mission of meeting the needs of each individual student, but we really want to enshrine that idea on paper. So the bylaws now, they are consistent with other private schools in Virginia, and they established organizational, operational, and financial controls for Reds as a business. So through these bylaws, just really high level, the way it works is that the vestry grants the school board oversight of the school, and then the school board, through the liaison, through the senior warden, and through Mother Molly, it's our responsibility to inform the parish of that relationship and all that's going on with those documents. So one at the bottom of your page, one other thing I want to touch on is the Reds budget. I think there have been a lot of misunderstandings that we hope to clarify about the budget, right? Including that Reds is rolling in the dough, or that there's some gold mine or some huge pile of cash that they're sitting on. As you can see, that's just not true. So for the current year, they are scheduled to bring in $1.2 million, which is it's a significant amount of money, right? But you also need to remember that they employ 30 people local to this area, and then they run a school. So they cover all of their own materials, they cover all of their own supplies, they cover all the salaries, including the Julia Dorsey, the head of school. They cover insurance, internet, cleaning services, administrative fees, accreditation fees. So all of those business expenses that you would expect, they cover all of those and are self-sustaining in that front. And then including the commitments that they've made to redeem for the year. Yes. It is $19,000 for this fiscal year. Yep. And then $30,000 starting their next fiscal year. Any other questions about the budget? Yes.
I'm kind of out of the loop on this, but I was just wondering,
Has the existence of Reds and utilization of our space caused any other organizations to not be able to use any church spaces that they traditionally had used, and what has been the outcome of that?
Do you want to answer the question?
If the question is, has there ever been conflicts in utilizing space? Absolutely. But we have a very straightforward way of handling that. The church space, all the church space here is given out in priorities. Number one priority is the Church of Redeemer. And in the summer, we usually meet and lay out a summer schedule for the space. Number two is Reds. Number three is any outside organization. The thing that you may be referring to, there was a situation where there was a conflict with a local organization, but the conflict was created because they changed a date. And when they changed the date, the new date they wanted was already booked by Reds. And we were not willing and would not in the future be willing to change something that's already on the books, just like we wouldn't do it vice versa. So we have a very specific laid out. Now, I will tell you, we didn't always have that. But one of the things that the vestry did last year was to come up with a building use policy, so it makes it very clear. Oh, one other thing. I want to make sure, thank you, by the way, wonderful presentation. But just to make sure it's clear, so the 30,000 that they're going to next year, that number didn't come up by magic. We gave them the number and said, this is where we think you need to be. We'll take the 19 this year, but we need you to give a little more. So they agreed to the 30, which we asked for. Number two, they do contribute to pay for our youth director. Thank God Almighty, we have a youth director. It's a wonderful asset. She is the chaplain for Reds, and they help contribute to pay for her salary. And he mentioned insurance, so they're paying their part of the insurance bill on the building, as well as having it cleaned, which isn't insignificant because their side of the building has to be cleaned much more frequently than our side of the building. So,
yeah, and all that information is in the MOU, right? For who is responsible for what. Yes, question in the back.
Can you tell me what the wellness coordinator is, and is that full-time?
She is a child psychologist.
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, she is a child psychologist. The wellness coordinator.
Mental wellness?
Yeah, mental, social, yes, yep. Any support. So Reds fully believes in supporting the whole child, right? So it's everything from academic to spiritual, which Dan just mentioned. So the primary students attend chapel once a week, and then their social emotional, problem solving, relationships in the classroom, relationships at home, right? So she provides those kinds of services to the students.
And it says full-time?
Yes.
As a reminder, if you have a question, please raise your hand, wait to be acknowledged, and wait till I bring the microphone to you. The microphone is for the use of everyone in the room, so everyone can hear. Please wait until I get to you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'd like to address a few more things before we really open the floor to two other questions, if it's okay. Dan kind of cut me off there. It's okay. So one really important thing that REDS has done in the last year is they've hired a director of administration, Sherry Vladimiru. So she is the business person, right? She's been managing the business. She's been working diligently to get the books in line with best of accounting practices, but also in line with the canons of the Episcopal Church and the Diocese of Southern Virginia. So she's worked very closely with Dale and with Larry Scott, who is the treasurer of the board, to get the books in order. So the last 2 years, REDS has they've used the same accounting firm. So what is Adams, Jenkins, and Cheatham? I always get that wrong. Adams, Jenkins, and Cheatham to do a soft audit in preparation for a full audit, hopefully in the very near future. The books have actually, REDS books have, in the history of the school since 1990, have never gone through a full audit. So that's something that we thought was very important to ensure that their ducks are in a row. So there are various reasons for that, right? Now, one, as the vestry, it makes us feel really good. Just know it's like a warm blanket, right? We say we say it's the word audit, and it's just like a warm security blanket, right? I know. It also ensures like the parent community of REDS that they have their ducks in a row for the investment that is school. As far as operations go for the daily running of the school, it's a wonderful place. I think we as Redeemer have a lot to be proud of. REDS kids, they love coming to school every day. Julia Dorsey and her staff have created a truly Episcopal environment. And like I said, in developing the whole child, they don't just say that, they actually follow through. So with the spiritual work, academics, right? And then the social emotional aspect of it too, of being a kid, right? So all of those things. So over the last several Fridays, the last 3 Fridays, your vestry has been taking tours of REDS for the first time, and taking groups. And the tour that I was on, it was really funny. We're walking. I think this happened to Molly too, actually. But in the kindergarten class, they are outside all the time. That's one thing with REDS, is that they are constantly outside. They fully believe that what you can learn inside, you can learn outside. So if you walk around the parking lot, there is an outdoor classroom. The playground's out there. But when you drive by during the week, and I encourage you to do so, you're almost guaranteed to see kids outside, rain or shine. But when we were on our tour, the kindergarten class was actually climbing through their window to get outside to use whiteboards to practice writing full sentences in the sunshine. So I think that's just like emblematic of what it means to be a REDS kid. And to me, I just during the week, I think just God's love pours through this building, pours out of this building with these children in it from Monday to Friday. One last thing, I'll say that service is a huge part of REDS. So they've actually established a really good relationship with Spring Arbor Senior Living across the street. So a few times a month, the students actually take field trips over there to do arts and crafts with the residents. February was actually Kindness Month. And the 3rd grade, so Margot's class, they're doing the ukulele this year, so they put on a ukulele concert for their residents over there too. So it's like those types of things, right? And then they partner with other local organizations. Celebrate RVA, which is a nonprofit, which provides celebrations for kids who otherwise wouldn't be able to have one, right? So they pack birthday bags, they blow up balloons, they do all kinds of things to assist Celebrate RVA on that front. Academically, they're completely in line with they call it SOL plus, right? So they're in line with the Virginia SOLs, which are the Virginia Standards of Learning, and they fully believe that if a student comes into Reds or if a student leaves Reds, right, that student will be more than ready. They'll be more than ready to make that transition. Make sure that transition is smooth for the student, because again, that is their primary concern, is the wellness of the student, whether they're here or not. And one last thing I'll say is that Reds is working. They actually had their third annual gala last night at Independence Golf Club. So just down the street. There were 150 people there, a little more than 150 people there, and the parent community, they love the school. So one thing that I want to focus on this year, and I've been working with talking with a few other vestry members about this, is to make sure that the Reds community knows that they are part of Redeemer, right? I think it's kind of an untapped ministry in that way, where there's a lot of youth and there's a lot of parents and there's a lot of interest and love for the school. So I think to be able to reach out that way would be significant, and we get some positive feedback about that. Are there any questions about academics? Or I'm not a teacher, but anything I can address?
You point and I run.
We'll start closest to you. Thanks, Steve.
Ed Schrader here. You mentioned about 19,000 being given to Redeemer this year and 30,000 next year. What does that cover? Is just like does that cover some cost or is it?
It's the estimate of utilities that they help consume. So electric, all that kind of stuff.
That's towards. What is there a waiting list for Reds right now?
Yes, I was actually just going to get into that. For the youngest class, the preschool class, ages 2 and 3, older 2, young 3s, there are 30 applicants next year for 13 seats. For the kindergarten class, there are nearly 60 applications for 18 seats. So there is significant demand in the community for this, which I think just reflects wonderfully on Reds, but also wonderfully on Redeemer.
All right, and what's the average tuition right now for Reds?
It is. Well, the preschool is it depends on the number of days. So if you go, you're in school 2 days a week, you pay less, right? And then that increases incrementally up to the JK class. Off the top of my head, I think the junior kindergarten class is around 4,500 for this year, and that's scheduled to increase next year. And then for the primary school, it's 8,900 per student. Yeah, good question. It's less. It's less than other private schools for sure. I think St. Michael's is around 13,000.
But not significant because of the increases to the performance.
Right. Yeah. So there's for primary school next year. There's it's a 10% increase in tuition from the current year to the next.
And I think the year before it was even more. It was a 15 or 20% increase.
If I might say, I was privileged to take a tour yesterday, Friday, and was blown away. I taught preschool at Reds for 14 years. There is no comparison, absolutely none. Julia, in my opinion, is gifted. This is what she is meant to do. She is called to do this. And I have never seen a more positive and happy place for children. They just exuded happiness and so glad to be there. I'm blown away. If my child had been able to have that experience, it would have changed his life. And there's no question in my mind of that. So I am a total supporter of Reds.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Great.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Jared, I like to look at things from a cost-benefit situation. And I think, we have to be honest. They're costing us a whole lot more than $19,000 a year. But I think there's another side of that coin, and the benefit side. How many parents do you all have any idea? How many parents are coming to Redeemer because they started their children at Reds? And
So we got 3, including Jared.
Yes, yeah, and like I said, this is an untapped ministry. Part of my focus for my last 2 year plus, right? The first year I was in parish life, wasn't a good fit. But the last year plus has been reconciliation. That has been my focus, 100% of reconciling the relationship between the church and school, getting it to a point where that we are then able to reach out to those families who are unchurched, right? And Molly has said it several times, all it takes is an invitation most of the time. So that is something that we are going to focus on, starting with VBS this summer, which we are extremely excited about. Yeah, Valerie?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for all that you've done to foster this relationship. I think it's very, very important. My question is, you've got so many applicants for so few seats. Do we have a long-range plan maybe to enlarge or build a school? And do we have any land here that we could build on?
It's a blessing and a curse, right? Where there's so much demand, but the curse is that we're not meeting the demand. So those are conversations that we have to have as a vestry, right? And with the Red School Board and with you all, right? About how can we best meet the need that's in the community clearly. Yeah, Nancy.
I don't have a question, but I would like to I'm a grandmother of 3 Red students, and you all have no idea how far-reaching this ministry is in the community. Word gets out. My grandchildren are being fostered in a way that is just making them grow in so many different areas. They are confident, aware of themselves and others. They're grateful. They are, they go over to Spring Arbor, like you said, and have friends over there. I hear a lot about this Miss Betty, and I'm getting a little jealous of Miss Betty. I need to go check her out. But anyway, yes, this is the greatest thing that this church, one of the greatest things this church has going. And we've been members since 1998. And if this school grows, everybody I meet in the community, they say, where are your grandchildren? And I tell them, and they say, oh, I've heard wonderful things about that school. So, yeah, I would encourage everyone to check it out. It's wonderful.
And certainly encourage you to take a tour if you want one. 100%. Julia and Lisa Zambito, who's the director of admissions, they love showing off the school. I would ask you to reach out to me first, so I can coordinate that. But I would love to do that for you all. So similar to the vestry, we did groups of 3 to 5 people, and we can do the same thing. And Julia has expressed that she would love to show you all this school. So it's just a magical place. So please reach out if you're interested. Related to that, communication-wise, it makes my job easier, right? If there is an issue with space, or if a toilet paper holder breaks, or something, right? It may have been a Red student. I would ask that you please come to me, or to Dan, or to Molly, or to Tarek even, before going to Julia. Chances are she already knows about the issue. But she doesn't need, 5 different people from 5 different walks of life telling her that a toilet paper holder is broken. So if we can streamline that communication, it just makes my job easier. So I appreciate that. Any other questions about Red? Yes, Carrie Sue.
On the communications front, so I think I love that we're focusing on that. I think there's probably a little bit more to do with coordination-wise. My kids go to Reds, 2 of my kids go to Reds. And I was also in the vestry during the super fun time we had for a couple of years. But I think it's important that we're really clear about the messaging regarding the possible expansion at some point, all that. We were really clear as a vestry when we said you cannot grow past X number on this campus. And then we keep, even in the bulletins, it's we're going to grow a middle school, and we need to be really thoughtful about that, because as we can see, this is a community that likes to talk. And then when there's a void, then it just, and then now they're going to tear down the church and build a university of Reds. So I do think it's important that the communication, if someone looks at the bulletin and it's Reds is going to grow, we got to be really clear about that, because our understanding as a church is this year we're taking a pause, and Reds needs to be lined up with that while we're doing that. So whoever's putting out the bulletin needs to think about that, because I get questions all the time. What do you know? And I'm like, I don't know anything about that. So it just, when I was I can't speak for now, but when I was in the vestry and we said you could grow a couple of grades, we said you cannot grow larger than this on this campus.
And they know that they've reached their limit here.
Yeah,
right?
but they need to be thoughtful about what they're
Yeah.
putting in the bulletins,
Yeah.
because then people are like, what does this mean?
Yeah, no, thank you. That's a great point. Yeah.
And we've also, just so you know, Reds, because they see the demand, they see the results they're producing, Reds has every interest in looking to grow. And they know that they need to come up with they know that they don't have a vote in whether they grow, other than to tell us, yes, we think we can. It has been made abundantly clear at every board meeting that it's great to do your due diligence to find out how much space would cost you, where that space would be, how much all the sundry things would be, and to come up with a strategic plan. Once you do, and you got it nailed down and you feel good about it, then you come to the vestry and the vestry makes the decision. So there is no ambiguity at all.
No, sorry, you're referring to the gala announcement, right? Is that what you're referring to? Okay. Yeah. But that didn't come up at all at the gala last night about expansion. They're raising money last night for the playground to improve their playground. So yeah. Thank you.
But now everybody here is blessed to spread the word. They will not expand a single grade without the full blessing. Part of that, and I appreciate the question, because part of that, Jared took the high ground, and because he's a high ground kind of guy. I'm not always a high ground kind of guy. So part of the lingering stuff we have is because of the way Reds grew from a preschool, a beloved preschool, to a day school. And that growth had to do very little with the vestry. It had to do, and to be honest with you, a fair amount with the school, but also it was the school and the priest. School and the priest. The vestry was out of the loop, everything was out of the loop. And so that started this little burr, under a legitimate burr under a saddle. So those days are gone. The vestry, by bylaw, has to be represented on the board of directors. A warden has to be on the board of directors. The priest is on the board of directors. So we have made changes to ensure that nothing rogue happens. But again, I would be remiss. That wasn't the preschool going off and doing their own thing. It was at the full blessing of an individual. And that's unfortunate, and it was not as it should be, and it is not how it will be going forward. So thank you, Kirsten.
I've wondered about this for a really long time. I think it's wonderful that we're fully accredited. I always wondered if at some point, as we expanded, if they could run into some problems because we're not we're limited handicapped accessible, or does that not apply to a school like this?
That's a building and grounds question.
Yeah, and we were grandfathered in, so it's not, for them to grow, if they got a new facility, it would absolutely have to be. But as far as I know, and if there's somebody else who has a better answer, it is not a problem because we were grandfathered in. But keep that elevator in mind, because I think we would all love to have, not just Reds, for Sunday school, for anything, to have access for our parishioner or our parishioner's child to be able to use the full building. So keep that in mind. I would just like to add, just to be totally upfront and honest, go back 2 years, I wasn't the biggest fan of Reds. I loved the preschool because my wife taught at the preschool. And I could see the value there. You know, kids there, and you find out, you recognize the parents on Sunday morning. And I understood it. The day school never made sense to me. And my initial relationship with Julia started off with me, in my typical blunt way, telling her, what part of we need money don't you understand? And
I was there for that meeting.
Yeah, I got looks from both Nancy Hodder and Jared. So it started off a bit contentiously. So feeling like I had let down my Christian upbringing, I took it upon myself to start every week when I come for staff meeting to going down and sitting with Julia for 5 or 10 minutes to talk, let her know what came up in a staff meeting but just to get to know her and to listen to her talk. And there's some things that my wife has trained me on about early childhood education that when you hear Julia talk, it just comes out in droves. You know, Jared was talking about how much time they spend outside. When we were driving over for the tour on Friday, I'm listening to NPR. And the newest thing with companies in the secular world is employers are learning that their employees need to get up and move, not a 15-minute break every 3 hours. Every hour, you need to have at least 5 minutes up and moving about. It makes you more productive. And if possible, that 5 minutes needs to be outside. And employers are gravitating toward this and finding ways to get their employees outside the building for 5 minutes on an hourly basis, not on a once or twice a day basis. The things that they're doing, the things that they're looking at are just in line with what needs to happen. And I thought it was funny. Somebody asked, are you teaching with all the latest and greatest methods? And they said, we're going back to traditional way of teaching. You know, we use phonics. Why? Because phonics works. So it was kind of exciting to hear that. You know, I remember a child psychologist who once said, if you want to know how to take care of a child, don't ask a child psychologist, go ask your grandmama. Your grandmama knows how to do it. So I thought it was wonderful to hear them say that no. And that the cursive, it's not a negative thing here at Reds. It's a positive thing. But so in the last year, my appreciation for Reds has grown. The work that's been spearheaded by Jared, but also Dale Maitman has done a Herculean job trying to get their finances straight. Larry Scott now is working with them. And it wasn't because they didn't care. Is if you ask an educator what they want to do, they want to educate, okay? It's like a preacher. A preacher wants to preach. Now, we're blessed with having an accountant as our preacher. So, by the way, that doesn't hurt on board meetings either. So Reds has clearly gotten the message that this is, we need to be a superior educational institution, but we also have to be cost effective, which means, again, they are providing us what we told them. And we did two different analyses, by the way. We did one based off of Dale took, and it's a sweat, this is not exact science, but with most of the utilities, he figured either 60% is used by Reds or 60% by the church. So almost all of it is a 60-40 split. Sometimes they pay 60% of the bill, sometimes we pay 60% of the bill. But it wasn't just grab a number, he did some thought to it. Jared did an analysis by checking in with other churches that have schools and came up to a number that was within spitting distance of it. So we feel good about when they hit that 30,000, okay, we're now, our head's at water. And they again, as he mentioned, 10% increase in tuition. Not a lot of parents are jumping up saying, yeah, 10%, but they do a very good job of keeping them abreast of what the market is, and they always want to be below the market, but where you can see the market. And that, I think, is the right place for them to be.
And part of that, too, is retaining their current families, right? Their current student base.
Oh, Lori.
I know we're talking about Reds, but when you were talking about being cost effective, do we also charge other organizations and people that come for weddings and all these things an amount of money? Because I know in the past that wasn't done either.
Yeah, we had a big gap, Lori. Thank you for bringing that up. We had a big gap in that. So last year when we came up with the building usage policy, it has charges for everything. If you use Parish Hall, it's this amount per hour. If you use the kitchen also, it's this amount. Broken down for weddings, for funerals, and then for just a sundry. So yes, now we have that. And it doesn't mean that we can't, negotiate, so that if there was an organization who was willing to do services in kind to use the space, we would consider that. But it won't be without a cost, because we have got to. Dale has taught me a phrase, and that's monetizing a building. You got to monetize the building. So that's the other thing I'd keep in mind. Again, with 30,000 for utilities, 5,000, I guess that's 5,000 to help defray the cost of our youth director. I don't even know what the insurance cost. It's up there. So if Reds were not there, we would need to come up with $40,000 or $50,000 of monetization of that building some other way. It doesn't come to my mind real quickly how we could monetize at that level. So we'll continue to make sure that they are making us whole, and we will keep pushing the idea of, pay us what it would cost you if you went outside. But I do believe when you consider the value they bring, it's money very, very well spent. Greg has had his limit.
Dan, I'd like to suggest, since Reds is contributing, like in part of Kristen's salary and other parts, rather than just say 19,000, you put the total amount in as Red's contribution, so that we have a better, more accurate number of what we're actually paying in.
I think that's a grand idea.
Yeah, we put that in the MOU.
I'm looking at Dale Bateman's. I thought I saw another hand go up.
This is just one real quick comment. How many are there in the 5th grade? Okay, there's 6 in the 5th grade. 2 of the 6 were admitted directly from Reds into the Chesterfield County 6th grade accelerated and gifted program. 3, so that's 50%. So that's pretty doggone impressive as far as I'm concerned.
That is impressive. Speaking of that, 5th grade could be significantly larger than it is now. The big thing is holding them back, and this is not to create rumors about them expanding. But they cannot grow the fifth grade the way they like because people don't want to send their kids someplace to fifth grade where they can't go to sixth. So when you hear that Red's talking about expansion, talking about other grades, it's because the need is really there. The parents see what they're getting at Red's and they want more of that. And they know they can't even, they have lost fifth grade students to other schools that offer a sixth and seventh grade. Again, cannot emphasize enough, nothing can be done until, one, they come up with a strategic plan that hits all the buttons it needs to hit. Then it has to be brought to the vestry for discernment. So it's a long process, but the demand's there, and the reason they're pushing so strong is not just that they want to grow, but they want to retain that fifth grade and make it as viable as possible. Are there questions outside? First of all, thank y'all. Those are tremendous questions. It's so wonderful to hear you and know that you're engaged with this. Are there other questions outside of Reds that you have? Uh-oh.
Are we ever going to start having dinners, socials again? I know it's something that isn't that important to many people. You know, like the steak dinner, the wine tasting,
Rob is just the man to answer the question.
Yes, actually. So we did have our first parish family game night, 2 weeks ago? We had 40-something people come. We had pizzas, people brought board games, they brought a bottle of wine. It was a great time, and everyone is invited. So we're gonna be doing that again in June. We have a date picked, but with Easter, we didn't wanna flood y'all's calendars with things. But with Parish Life, we're gonna be trying a bunch of different things this year and just kind of seeing what sticks. So the next thing that's coming up is we're gonna be meeting at Midlothian Mines Park in mid-April to pick up trash. It's something that I did with my Cub Scouts for years. It's a good time, it's certainly needed, so I invite everyone to that. Then in May, we're gonna be hiking at Belle Isle. Depending on how that goes, there's rough plans in the fall to go hiking up in the mountains and then stop at a winery on the way back. Yes, we're going to be doing, we're sort of rebooting Parish Life this year. Yeah.
This is one reason why we're getting better, because we at least have two of us. But for those who want the dinners back and things like that, we are looking for people who are interested in helping, right? Because we can only do what we can do from the perspective of being your vestry liaisons. We need people who are willing to say, hey, I'll sign up for a committee, or I'll, pitch in to help out with even game night, which is, theoretically pretty easy, and it went really smoothly. But if we want to start doing things on a more regular cadence, the ideas are awesome, and we'll take them. But we also need people to say, and we'll sign up for the setup and the cleanup, because a lot of it takes people. It takes capital, and that capital is you. And we want to do more. We're looking forward to doing more. And it's great to have a partner in crime, so to speak. So, thanks.
Yeah. Well said, Jeff.
That's a really nice benefit that Molly made to the vestry. In previous years, for the most part, individual vestry people had commissions. And you really were somewhat of a one-man show. Eric Frazier, I know for 3 years, was a solo guy trying to take care of this facility and without a team. What Molly did is change around the batting order. Now you have a senior warden, which we used to have co-wardens. She just wanted to make sure y'all knew I was old. But speaking of the wardens, I heard a question. I'm going to ask a question, because Molly, in a write-up, I should have known better, talked about the senior warden and the junior warden, and the fact that if parishioners have any questions, they can go to the junior warden. And there are, some people are black and white people, some people are gray people. For the black and white people, that she did not mean in any way, shape, or form that if you have a question, you need to go to Tara Keevan. She just meant that that's kind of what's traditionally done in that role. You can come to me, you can come to Tara, you can come to Jared, you can come to Rob, you go to anyone you bloody well want to, any vestry person with any question on any topic, whether it's their commission or not. If you go to somebody who's in their commission, they may actually have the answer for you. But if you, on the back of your bulletin, thank you, Jared. See, you surround yourself with smarter people, that's always the rule line. But you go to anybody you want, and if we don't have the answer, we'll darn well get it for you and come back to you. So that was my question.
We've talked to several priests along the line, and we'd like to be buried in the garden here. And I want to know, is there a fee to do that? We plan to be cremated first. Do we need to check with the crematory place first or the church first? What is the process for that?
If you are a member of the church, as you are, there is no fee to be buried in the memorial garden from the church. We don't do cremation, so you'd have to get that. If you have a service here, then we do charge for the bulletin. We charge our cost. And if you have a reception here, then we do charge our cost. So if you're a member, you pay any out-of-pocket cost. Now, one change that's been made, just so you're aware, is that we will no longer be burying ashes in an urn or any sort of holder. Not a plastic bag, not a wood, nothing. The ashes go straight into the ground. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, not ashes to wood and wood to dust. Okay? Any other questions on that?
Thank you, Molly. I was panicked because I knew we had one. I didn't know what it was. Other questions?
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Dean, for stepping up and all of that and stepping in, getting everywhere.
Thank you. On behalf of the whole vestry, I say thank you. Appreciate that. If there are no other I forgot the way I was supposed to start this off. Go Dukes. We still have some reason to watch the tournament. Okay, thank you all. We really appreciate your time and your interest, and we look forward to seeing you several times this week in Holy Week. Thanks.